Neo, The World Ends With You is a role-playing action game that is co-developed by Square Enix and HAND. It is also a sequel to 2007's video game The World Ends With You. High schoolers Reno Kanade and Tasai Fret Furusawa are unexpectedly drawn into the Reaper's Game, a competition for the recently deceased in which they must battle other teams over the course of a week's for their survival. Now, I'm new to this series. I had no idea that this game had a sequel. If I would have known this, well, if I would have known the premise of the whole Neo franchise, I probably would have bought the first one already, because by me coming into this game, and by me being aware of the game mechanics, because I found out about this game by watching a trailer that my cousin sent me. So by me seeing this trailer, seeing the combat, seeing the mechanics, and just being overwhelmed of just all the stuff that was in front of me, I instantly got pulled in. I must say that I'm actually a fan of the Neo series now. Now, if you have not played the games, or if you're not aware of it, or if you are aware of the game, and you're just on the fence of just trying to see if you should buy it, or maybe is it your thing, I'm going to tell you right now, if you like RPGs, if you like story-driven games, and if you just like a good concept of just keeping you on the edge of your seat, of how the mechanics should just not confuse you, but keep you entertained with the creativity of the combat, you won't be sorry. Trust me, you should definitely check this out. Speaking of the combat, I thought the combat was great. Now, some people may have had a problem with the combat, saying that the combat was too confusing, but with me, I had no problem with the combat at all. Now, getting into the intensity of the combat, we have certain varieties of how to make the combat interesting when it comes to you defeating the enemies. Now, what I like about the game is they like to keep you entertained when it comes to you switching up your move set, when it comes to you fighting certain bosses, fighting certain enemies. And to do that, you unlock different ways of how you attack, which is these pins. And these pins have different varieties to choose from when it comes to you finding different ways to not just defeat your enemies, but making them vulnerable to your attacks when it comes to elementals like water, ice, thunder, fire, I don't know if I already said that, rocks, you name it, they have it. And by you choosing these mechanics, you have to press the button that is given to you in order for these functions to work. Now, that's what makes certain players of the game get drifted away, because they may get used to the mechanics already, and for them to get switched up to the mechanics, for them to progress through the game, because there could be some pins that they may have unlocked through the game's progression, and by them progressing through the, sorry about that, by them progressing through the game, their pins may be outdated, so they may have to try to choose other move sets in their pins for them to progress even higher. But for them to do that, these pins may have a different button configuration for them to choose, and that can draw them away. But with me, I thought that that was unique, that was creative, and it drew me into the game even more, because let's just face it, with Neo's fights, with the bosses, with the enemies, I feel like it's not easy for me to get frustrated by playing a game. I play a lot of hardcore games. In fact, when I played Neo, as soon as I was getting entwined with the button mechanics, I instantly got, like, I can't say bored, but I've already gotten used to it. So I instantly put the game on hard. And even then it was getting easier, because I was easily beginning to know the enemy's predictions. So for me to get on edge of my seat, for me to enjoy the game, and to, for me to keep myself on the brink of excitement, I had to keep switching my move setup. And for people who I've seen on YouTube that had like great creativities of their move set and just having great combo connections with their pins, I'm gonna have to say, man, that's some pretty badass shit that y'all showed on YouTube. People who have played this game and is aware of the button configurations, they're not going to say that the combat is repetitive. I don't think it's repetitive, especially if you're going to get yourself entwined with the pin set. Now, there's not 10, there's not 20, there are hundreds of pins to choose from. So you're not going to get bored playing the game with the, when it comes to trying to figure out what kind of combat to choose from. You may be confused, but all I'm going to say is this: for it to get easier to you, I highly recommend you trying a move set that has ice, fire, electricity, and a moveset that can keep your enemy standing still, which is ice. Now, we can't have great, fantastic fights with great, fantastic music. And I'm have to say that, well, Square Enix is known when it comes to their music. Like, a lot of their games that has, like, great RPG fighting elements, they have to include music so it can be more engaging. And I'm going to have to say, with Neo, The World Ends With You music is fucking addicting. Like, better than Kanye West's Donda album, Addicting. And that's not really a lot to say because this album was a freaking it was, I don't even want to get into it. That's a whole nother subject, but I'm gonna have to say that the Neo soundtrack is amazing. I already got like a little bit of a playlist that I've downloaded that I just grown attached to when it comes to the soundtrack of the game, especially the song called Chase. Like when I hear that song, even when I'm roaming around the city without fighting, I just get pumped. And when I start fighting and when they play that song, there's no way I can lose. Just the song is just so energizing, and it just motivates me. Round and around and around we chase. Round and around we chase. Round and around we chase. Now, as for the character development, we have Fret and we have Rendo, the two main characters of the story. Now, as they progress, they begin to see other characters that begin to help them on their journey. Now, I've grown attached to Rendo's character and Fret's character. I actually like Fret's character a lot because he's one of the characters that break the ice. He likes to crack jokes. When things are serious, he tries to break the fourth wall by adding a little humor to it as well. He reminds me a lot of Krillin. That may hurt some Fret fans, but the reason I'm saying that is because what Krillin and Fret have in common is that when they're at the brink of defeat or when the odds are stacked against them, they kind of read our minds, letting us know that we're screwed. So we think that way, but then they just up and say it. And that's what Fret's character is. Like he doesn't just say stuff like that, but he's a very uplifting character as well. When things go down and when they're at the edge of just doubting themselves, I like how Fret begins to uplift people. And I think that's important from a character development standpoint of a game like this, because especially for an RPG standpoint, because character development and story is very important. And the story of the game, it pulled me in a lot. I was getting a lot of Gantz vibes because these characters don't even know like the whole criminality of how they even got attached to the Reapers and the game they got to play. But as they progress through the game, as you progress through the game and as they progress to the story, everything begins to make sense to you. And it doesn't really hold you by the hand because you have to go through certain trials and certain puzzles in order for you to progress to the next part of the game. Now, does that mean that this game is perfect? Well, not really. By me loving the character so much and by me loving the game, there are just certain little aspects of the game that I wish that they could have improved, especially if they're going to put this on the next gen consoles. Well, not the PS5 and the Xbox and the new Xbox, but the modern consoles that we're playing today that we're still not tired of. Now, one of the main things I don't like is the backtracking. Too much backtracking. I hate backtracking. Now, for an open world game, I understand that backtracking can not really be that linear because you're still trying to progress through the visualities of the game's atmosphere. I understand that. But after a while, you have certain people, especially myself, that will look at certain stuff like that, but you can't really pay too much attention to it because you're trying to make a review. So that's one flaw. Another flaw is that I just don't like the fact that even though you have characters on your side, you have 4 characters with you on this quest, but only your main character shows up while progressing through the game. What I mean by that is a lot of RPGs do this, where you have a squad, you have a team, but only your main character is running around through the field. Only your main character is running around through the city. The only time the side character shows up is if you're in a fight or when you're in a cutscene. Now, I know some people may say that that's normal for RPGs, it's not really a flaw, but I feel like that is a flaw because you have certain RPG elements and you have certain creators that make RPGs and they remaster them and they fix that issue. Square Enix is guilty of the same thing. They released Final Fantasy VII and they fixed that with Cloud and its characters. Final Fantasy 15, you see all their characters. They had not had that issue with none of the Kingdom Hearts games. I've seen Donald and fucking Goofy walk with swords since Kingdom Hearts 1. All I'm saying is, some people may not think that's a flaw, but I feel like if you're going to do the character development justice and the story justice, I would be more intertwined with the lifespan of the characters if they walk around the city as well as the main. It just makes it more realistic to me. And then when they show up, it's only when there's a cutscene. It stands out like a sore thumb. But either way, that's not to justify the game itself. It's an issue, of course, but not for you to enjoy the game or what's given to you. I love this game. I'm glad that I caught an eye to it, and I have to thank my cousin for putting me involved into the Neo series. I can't wait to see what else they have for this franchise if they want to keep this up. And if you're new to the series, or if you're on the fence like I mentioned on the beginning of the review, you won't be sorry. This is a game I suggest you guys to not pass up on. You will be satisfied. I'm going to have to give Neo The World Ends With You a B. I was trying to do this review earlier, but I took so long because this actually messed me up because I did not know this game was going to be this long. But it's Square Enix. Square Enix games is normally long, so that's why I was like, let me take my time trying to get this review done because I want to get everything on par, everything on point. And I don't regret it. I may lose some views watching it, but I don't really get a lot of views on my channel anyway, so I'm just doing it just for the experience and just for a little, well, only a handful of people might grab it. Well, that's all I have to say for today. Please stay tuned for more of my upcoming reviews and videos headed your way. This is Hugo, your critic teacher. You guys have a good day.